The huge alien ships floated in the black emptiness of space. Their metal sides gleamed in the light of the nearby stars. Colorful lights blinked along their hulls. On the biggest ship, named Eternal Dawn, Admiral Zex Terra stood tall and proud. The admiral had 6 arms and blue skin that shimmered like water. His large eyes blinked slowly as he looked at the screens showing the defeated enemy ships. The battle was over. His forces had won against the Arcturus Confederation after 3 years of fighting. Today marks the end of chaos, Zex Terra said to the officers on the bridge. His voice was deep and echoed through the room. The Galactic Alliance has brought order once again. The other aliens, some with scales, others with fur, and a few that looked like walking plants, all cheered. They had fought hard for this victory. Now the 7 species of the Alliance could rule the galaxy without anyone standing in their way. "Sir," said one of the officers, "should we tell the planets about our victory?" Zex Terra nodded. "Send the message to all worlds under our protection. Tell them that peace has been restored." What the Admiral didn't say was what would come next. The Alliance had already picked their new target, a small blue planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a planet called Earth. Far away from the celebration, on a small military base on Earth, Commander Peter Wright sat at his desk. His face looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept well in days. The small office was plain, with just a desk, chair, and a few pictures of his family on the wall. A computer screen in front of him showed a coded message. It had taken his team 3 days to break the alien code. What they found made his stomach turn. "Sir, are you seeing this?" asked his assistant, Sergeant Mary Doyle. She pointed at the screen with a shaking hand. "I see it," Peter said quietly. "The Alliance is coming for Neptune next. They think we're weak." Earth had stayed out of the Galactic War. While alien species fought each other across the stars, humans had pretended to be primitive and unimportant. Earth ships rarely went beyond Mars, making the galaxy believe humans could barely leave their own planet. It was all a lie. Peter picked up a secure phone and dialed a number only 5 people on Earth knew. "This is Commander Wright. Authorization code Bravo 79 Delta. I need to speak with Admiral Harper immediately." A minute later, a gruff voice answered. "Harper here. This better be important." "Right." "Sir, we've decoded an Alliance transmission. They're heading to Neptune. The invasion will begin in less than 72 hours. There was silence on the line. Then Admiral Harper spoke, his voice now deadly serious. "Are you absolutely certain?" "Yes, sir. They mentioned Operation Peaceful Integration. That's their code for taking over a planet. I'll call the council. Get to Washington immediately." The line went dead. Peter stood up and grabbed his jacket. As he rushed out, Mary called after him. "Sir, what's happening?" Peter paused at the door. "The thing we've been preparing for. The Alliance thinks they've won their war. They think we're next, an easy target." "And are we?" Mary asked, fear in her eyes. Peter's mouth formed a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "They have no idea what's waiting for them." 12 hours later, Peter sat in a large room deep underground. Around a round table sat the most powerful military leaders on Earth. Maps and screens covered the walls, showing Earth's solar system and the positions of known alien fleets. Admiral Joe Harper stood at the head of the table. He was a tall man with gray hair cut short and a face that had seen too many wars. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harper said, "the moment we've been preparing for has arrived. The Galactic Alliance believes they've crushed all opposition. Now they're coming for us." He pressed a button, and a 3D image appeared above the table. It showed massive ships hidden within the storms of Jupiter. "Operation Thunderstrike is now active," Harper continued. "Our dreadnoughts are ready." The room fell silent. For 10 years, Earth had been building these ships in secret. Each one was more powerful than anything the Alliance had ever seen. "They're celebrating their victory," Harper said with a cold smile. Let them celebrate. They have no idea what's coming. The Galactic Alliance ships moved slowly toward Neptune. There were 20 of them, all with weapons ready. The aliens inside thought this would be easy. They called it a peacekeeping mission, but it was really an attack. Captain Susan Miller stood at the window of Trident Base, the largest human station orbiting Neptune. She watched as the alien ships grew closer on her screens. Her hands shook, but her face stayed calm as she turned to her crew. "Everyone to emergency stations," she said. "This is not a drill." The crew ran to their posts. They all knew what was coming. Susan walked to the communications room and sat at the main console. "This is Captain Miller of Trident Base to Earth Command. Alliance forces have entered Neptune space. 20 ships, heavily armed. Sending visual data now." She pressed a button to send the images of the approaching ships. Then she added, "Starting defense plan blue. Miller out." Susan knew Trident Base could not win against 20 alien warships, but they didn't need to win. They just needed to send the warning. Outside, the Alliance ships moved into attack position. On the lead ship, Commander Yflar gave the order to fire. "Begin the peace process," he said with a smile that showed too many teeth. Green beams of light shot from the Alliance ships toward Trident Base. The first hits made the station shake. Alarms went off everywhere. "Shields failing," shouted one of Susan's officers. Susan nodded. "We've done our job. Evacuation plan now. All personnel to escape pods." As her crew ran for the escape pods, Susan stayed at her post. She had one more message to send. "Earth Command, this is Miller. They're here. Thunderstrike is our only hope now." The console in front of her exploded in sparks. Susan was thrown back against the wall as more explosions rocked the station. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was the Alliance ships, moving past Neptune toward Earth. On Earth, Admiral Harper watched the video feed from Neptune. His face showed no emotion as Trident Base broke apart under alien fire. But his fists were clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. "Captain Miller did her duty," he said quietly. "Now we do ours." The underground command center was filled with military personnel working at their stations. Maps showed the Alliance fleet's path toward Earth. They would reach the inner solar system in 3 days. Commander Peter Wright stood next to Harper. "Sir, should we activate our orbital defenses?" Harper shook his head. "No. We keep playing weak. Let them think they're facing a helpless planet." He turned to face the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Send the wake-up call to Jupiter." A young officer pressed a series of buttons on her console. "Signal sent, sir. Confirmation received." Harper nodded. "Now we wait." Peter looked at the map. "The Alliance thinks this will be easy. A quick victory over a primitive species." "Yes," said Harper with a grim smile. "The same mistake many have made throughout human history. They underestimate us." Deep within Jupiter's swirling storms, 30 massive warships received the signal from Earth. Lights began to turn on inside them. Engines hummed to life. Weapons systems ran checks. On the bridge of the biggest ship, named Terra's Vengeance, Colonel Frank Daniels opened his orders. He read them quickly, then looked up at his crew. "Wake up complete. All systems online. Earth has called for Thunderstrike." His second-in-command, Major Linda Baker, nodded. "How bad is it, sir?" "Neptune has fallen. The Alliance is heading toward Earth with 20 ships." Linda smiled. "Only 20? They have no idea what's coming." Frank turned to the weapons officer. "Prepare all systems. We launch in 30 minutes." The officer nodded. "Yes, sir. Should we prepare the quantum drives as well?" "Yes," Frank said. "Earth has waited long enough. We'll show the Alliance what humans are really capable of." Throughout the massive ship, soldiers prepared for battle. They had trained for years for this moment. The ship itself was unlike anything ever seen in the galaxy, 3 times larger than the biggest Alliance vessel, with technology the aliens couldn't even understand. Frank looked at the main view screen showing Jupiter's storms hiding his fleet. Soon, those storms would part. Soon, the real war would begin. "Crew to battle stations," he ordered. "The Alliance wants to meet humanity. Let's introduce ourselves." Inside Jupiter's stormy clouds, the 30 Earth dreadnoughts began to move. They had been hidden there for years, built in secret while the rest of the galaxy thought humans were barely able to reach their own moon. Each ship was massive, dark, and filled with weapons that would make the Alliance forces tremble. Colonel Frank Daniels stood on the bridge of Terra's Vengeance, the lead dreadnought. He watched as his crew prepared for battle. They had trained for this day for so long. Now it was finally here. "Status report," Frank said to his second-in-command, Major Linda Baker. Linda checked her screens. "All systems green, sir." "The other ships report ready as well. First wave of 7 dreadnoughts is prepared to launch." Frank nodded. According to their plan, they would send 7 ships first. If needed, the rest would follow. He looked at the main screen showing the gas giants swirling storms outside. "Begin launch sequence," he ordered. "Let's show the Alliance what they're really dealing with." The massive engines of the dreadnoughts powered up. The ships began to rise through Jupiter's thick atmosphere. Lightning flashed around them as they pushed upward. "Communications, alert Earth Command that first wave is launching," Frank said. A young officer nodded. "Yes, sir. Earth acknowledges and wishes us good hunting." Frank smiled for the first time in days. "Set course for Neptune. Prepare quantum drives." The quantum drives were Earth's greatest secret. They allowed the dreadnoughts to travel vast distances almost instantly. The Alliance had nothing like them. They still used old-style warp drives that took days to cross the same space. "Quantum drives ready," reported the navigation officer. "Course set for Neptune." Frank took a deep breath. "Execute." The 7 dreadnoughts vanished from Jupiter's clouds. In less than a blink, they reappeared near Neptune. The journey would have taken an Alliance ship 3 days. They did it in seconds. Near Neptune, the Alliance ships were still examining the ruins of Trident Base. They were taking their time, confident that Earth posed no threat. They had no idea what was coming. "Arrival complete," said the navigation officer. "All ships present and accounted for." Frank looked at the view screen. He could see the Alliance ships in the distance. They were small compared to the Earth dreadnoughts. "They haven't noticed us yet," Linda said with surprise. "They're not looking," Frank replied. "They think they're alone out here." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their engines and weapons systems. I want to disable, not destroy if possible." "Yes, sir." "Targets locked." Frank stood up. "Open a channel to all Alliance ships." After a moment, the communications officer nodded. "Channel open." "Sir." Frank spoke clearly and calmly. "Alliance vessels, this is Colonel Frank Daniels of the Earth Defense Force aboard the dreadnought Terra's Vengeance. You have attacked human territory without provocation. Power down your weapons and prepare to surrender." There was a long silence. Then a confused alien voice replied. "This is Commander Ythlar of the Galactic Alliance. Your claims are noted, but we detect no significant vessels in our vicinity. This is clearly a bluff from a primitive species." Frank nodded to his tactical officer. "Show them we're here." The tactical officer pressed a button. Suddenly, the dreadnought's cloaking fields dropped. 7 massive warships appeared around the Alliance fleet, each one dwarfing the alien vessels. On the Alliance ships, panic spread quickly. Alarms sounded as their sensors finally detected the Earth vessels. "By the 7 stars," gasped Commander Ythlar on the main Alliance ship. "Where did they come from? What are those things?" Frank waited a moment to let the fear sink in. Then he spoke again. "This is your final warning. Surrender now or face the consequences." "Never," Ythlar shouted. "All ships, open fire." The Alliance ships began firing at the Earth dreadnoughts. Their weapons looked like little more than fireworks against the massive shields. Frank sighed. "They always choose the hard way." All ships, Return fire. Targeted strikes only. The Dreadnoughts fired. Precise beams of energy hit the Alliance ships, cutting through their shields like they weren't even there. In seconds, half the Alliance fleet was disabled. Continue firing, Frank ordered. Let's teach them what happens when you attack Earth. The battle near Neptune ended quickly. The Alliance ships were no match for Earth's Dreadnoughts. Out of 20 alien vessels, 17 were now disabled, floating helplessly in space. Their weapons were gone, engines dead. Commander HFY stood on his damaged bridge, staring at the screens in disbelief. His ship was one of the few still working, though barely. Smoke filled the air, and injured crew members lay on the floor. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Humans are primitive. They barely have space travel. Where did these ships come from?" His second-in-command, a tall alien with green scales, looked at him with fear. "Sir, they're hailing us again." HFY nodded weakly. "Put them through." Colonel Frank Daniels appeared on the screen. The human looked calm, sitting in his command chair on a bridge that seemed far more advanced than anything the Alliance had. "Commander HFY," Frank said, "your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and we will spare your lives." HFY growled. "Never. The Alliance does not surrender to lesser species." Frank sighed. "Very well. We've disabled most of your fleet. I'm giving you one chance. Take your remaining ships and return to Alliance space. Tell them what happened here." HFY was confused. "You're letting us go." "One ship only," Frank corrected. "The others stay here as our prisoners." HFY thought quickly. This was strange behavior. In his experience, victors didn't let enemies escape to warn others. "Unless you want me to tell them," he realized suddenly. "You want the Alliance to know about your ships." Frank smiled slightly. "Smart alien. Yes, tell them about Earth's Dreadnoughts. Tell them what happens when they attack human territory." HFY nodded slowly. "I will go. But know this, human. The Alliance will return with far greater numbers." "We're counting on it," Frank replied before ending the transmission. On the Earth Dreadnought, Major Linda Baker approached Frank. "Sir, are you sure letting one ship go is wise?" Frank nodded. "Admiral Harper's orders. We want the Alliance to know what they're facing now. Fear can be a powerful weapon." Linda looked at the screens showing the damaged Alliance ships. "They'll come back with their full fleet." "Yes," Frank agreed. "And we'll be ready." 2 days later, the news of Earth's Dreadnoughts spread through the galaxy. In the Alliance capital, a massive city covering an entire moon, panic began to grow. The ruling council of the 7 species met in an emergency session. Admiral Zex Terra paced back and forth in the Grand Chamber. His blue skin had turned pale with rage. "How is this possible?" he shouted at his advisors. "Our intelligence said humans were barely space-capable." An advisor, a small alien with 4 eyes, spoke carefully. "They deceived us, Admiral. They kept their true capabilities hidden." Another council member, this one looking like a large insect, clicked its mandibles nervously. "The reports say these dreadnoughts are 3 times the size of our largest vessels, and they have technology we've never seen." "Impossible." Zex Terra slammed his fist on the table. "No species could develop such technology without us knowing." The insect-like alien showed a hologram of the Earth ships. "The evidence is clear. They have quantum drives, energy weapons beyond our capabilities, and shields that our weapons can't penetrate." Zex Terra stared at the images. These human ships were indeed massive, black and sleek, like predators waiting to strike. "The Arcturus Confederation has already heard the news," said another council member. "They're beginning to regroup. If they ally with humans." "That cannot happen," Zex Terra said firmly. "We must crush the humans before more of their dreadnoughts appear. Summon the Grand Armée. Every ship we have." The council members looked at each other nervously. "The entire Armada. That's over 300 ships. And it still may not be enough," Zex Terra said grimly. We thought we had won the war. We celebrated victory. But this, he pointed at the image of Earth's dreadnoughts. This changes everything. Far away, hiding among the asteroids near Earth, Lieutenant Kate Robinson received the Alliance transmission. As a human spy embedded within the alien society for years, she knew what this meant. "They're coming," she whispered to herself as she encoded a message to Earth. "With everything they have." Lieutenant Kate Robinson moved quickly through the crowded streets of the Alliance capital. She kept her head down, the special mask on her face, making her look like one of the many alien species that lived here. After 5 years as a spy, she knew how to blend in. Her small communication device was hidden in her sleeve. The message to Earth had been sent, but she needed to get more information. The Alliance was planning something big. Kate entered a busy bar where many Alliance military officers gathered. She took a seat in the corner, ordered a drink, and listened. The officers at the next table were talking loudly, their voices filled with fear and anger. 300 ships. The entire armada, one officer said. All because of these human dreadnoughts. Another officer, a tall alien with red skin, leaned forward. "I heard they have more than just 7 ships. Some say they have 30 or more hidden in their system." "Impossible," the first officer replied. "No species could build that many without us knowing." The red alien laughed bitterly. "Well, they did. And now we're rushing to attack them before they can deploy more." Kate sipped her drink slowly, listening carefully. 300 ships were coming to Earth. She needed to warn her people about when. "When does the armada leave?" asked a third officer at the table. "Tomorrow," the red alien said. "We gather at the edge of their system in 3 days. Admiral Zex Tara will lead the attack himself." Kate had heard enough. She finished her drink and left the bar. Finding a quiet alley, she sent another quick message to Earth. 3 days. That's all the time they had. On Earth, Admiral Harper read Kate's message with a grim face. 300 ships were coming. The entire Alliance armada. "They're taking us seriously now," he said to Commander Peter Wright, who stood beside him in the underground command center. Peter nodded. Kate's intelligence has always been reliable. If she says 3 days, it's 3 days. Harper turned to the large screen showing the positions of Earth's forces. The 7 dreadnoughts that had fought at Neptune were now back at Jupiter, joining the rest of the fleet. "It's time," Harper said. "Deploy all 30 dreadnoughts and activate the rest of our defenses." Peter's eyes widened. "All of them, sir. We plan to keep some in reserve." Harper shook his head. "Not anymore. The Alliance is sending everything they have. So will we." Orders went out across the solar system. Hidden bases on Mars, Venus, and among the asteroids began to reveal themselves. Smaller Earth ships, still powerful by Alliance standards, emerged from their hiding places, 500 of them forming a defensive net around Earth. And from Jupiter, all 30 dreadnoughts moved into position. Each one was a city in space, crewed by thousands of men and women ready to defend their home. Deep within the Terra's Vengeance, Chief Engineer Alan Cooper worked frantically in the main engine room. Sweat dripped from his face as he adjusted the quantum drive systems. "More power," he said to his team. "We need more power for what's coming." His assistant, Sam Potter, looked worried. "The drives are already at maximum capacity, sir." Alan shook his head. "Not good enough. The Admiral wants something special this time." He pointed to the large device they had installed in the center of the engine room. It was new technology, never tested in battle. "The quantum disruptor will be our edge," Alan explained. "When activated, it will prevent any Alliance ship from using their faster-than-light drives. They won't be able to escape." Sam whistled. "So it's going to be a fight to the end." "Yes," Alan said grimly. "No retreats, for them or us." On the bridge, Colonel Frank Daniels received the latest reports. All 30 dreadnoughts were in position. Earth's defensive fleet was ready. Now they just had to wait. Frank looked at the stars on his view screen. Out there, the Alliance Armada was coming. The biggest gathering of military might in galactic history, all aimed at Earth. 3 days, he said quietly. Then we show them what humanity is really capable of. Major Linda Baker nodded beside him. The Alliance thinks they know what they're facing. They've seen 7 of our ships. But they haven't seen all 30 working together, Frank said. And they haven't seen our real weapons yet. Linda smiled. It's going to be quite a surprise. Yes, Frank agreed. The kind they won't forget, if any of them survive to remember it. 3 days passed quickly. At the edge of Earth's solar system, in the distant Kuiper Belt, 300 Alliance warships appeared out of faster-than-light travel. They formed a massive wall of metal and weapons, stretching across the blackness of space. Admiral Zex Terra stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the images of the distant Earth, so small, so blue, so seemingly harmless. But he knew better now. Status report, he demanded from his officers. All ships present and accounted for, Admiral, said his second-in-command. This is the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Zex Terra nodded, and it still may not be enough. Where are the human dreadnoughts? The sensor officer checked his screens. We detect them near the gas giant Jupiter, Admiral. 30 ships, just as our intelligence suggested. 30 ships against 300. The numbers should have made Zex Terra feel confident, but he had seen the reports from Neptune. These human ships were unlike anything the Alliance had faced before. They're not moving to attack, noted another officer. They're staying in defensive positions. They're waiting for us, Zex Terra said. Very well. Let's not disappoint them. Order the fleet to advance. All ships, full weapons ready. The Alliance Armada began to move toward the inner solar system. Their weapons charged, their shields at maximum. They moved in perfect formation, just as they had done countless times against other enemies. But Earth was not like other enemies. Admiral Harper watched the Alliance fleet's approach from Earth's command center. Around him, officers monitored screens showing the positions of all ships. They're moving in standard attack formation, said Commander Peter Wright. Just as we expected. Harper nodded. They're confident in their numbers. That will change soon enough. He turned to his communications officer. Send the signal to activate the quantum disruptors. The officer nodded. Signal sent, sir. On all 30 dreadnoughts, engineers activated the new technology. Waves of invisible energy spread out across the solar system, changing the very nature of space around them. On the Alliance ships, alarms suddenly began to sound. Admiral, shouted a panicked officer on Zex Terra's bridge. Our faster-than-light drives are not responding. We can't create jump points. Zex Terra's eyes widened. What? Check again. It's confirmed, sir. Something is blocking the drives. We can't retreat. For the first time, fear showed clearly on Zex Terra's face. What kind of technology can do this? It's impossible. But the evidence was clear. The Alliance fleet was trapped. They could only go forward now. Zex Terra straightened his back. It changes nothing. We still outnumber them 10-1. Continue the advance. Colonel Frank Daniels watched as the Alliance fleet approached. His dreadnought, Terra's Vengeance, floated at the center of Earth's formation. All 30 massive ships were spread out in a sphere, with hundreds of smaller Earth vessels positioned around them. The quantum disruptors are working, reported Major Linda Baker. Alliance ships are continuing their approach. They can't retreat now. Frank nodded. Good. Are our special weapons ready? Linda checked her console. Yes, sir. All ships report ready. Frank looked at the main screen, showing the approaching wall of Alliance ships. They still think numbers will save them. Let's prove them wrong. All ships, prepare to engage. The 30 dreadnoughts began to move. Unlike the rigid formations of the Alliance, the Earth ships moved like a living thing, flowing and changing position. The smaller Earth vessels darted between them, taking up their own positions. They're in range, Linda said. Alliance ships are charging weapons. Frank took a deep breath. This was the moment they had prepared for all these years. The moment when humanity would show the galaxy its true power. All ships, he said calmly, open fire. From the 30 dreadnoughts, beams of energy unlike anything seen before in the galaxy shot toward the Alliance fleet. The beams cut through space, moving faster than should be possible. They hit the front line of Alliance ships. And those ships simply disappeared. Not exploded, not broken apart. They were there one moment, and gone the next, leaving not even debris behind. On his flagship, Admiral Zex Terra stared in horror. What was that? Where are our ships? No one on his bridge could answer. They had never seen weapons like this. Before they could recover, another wave of energy beams shot from the Earth fleet. More Alliance ships vanished. Return fire, Zex Terra shouted. All ships, full attack. The battle for Earth had begun. The battle raged across the solar system. Alliance ships fired everything they had at the Earth dreadnoughts. Green and red beams crossed the blackness of space. Explosions lit up the darkness like new stars being born. But the Alliance weapons seemed to have little effect. Each time their beams hit an Earth dreadnought, the energy was somehow caught by the shields. Then, most strangely of all, that same energy would shoot back toward the Alliance ships, twice as powerful. On the Terra's Vengeance, Colonel Frank Daniels watched the battle unfold on the main screen. Beside him, Major Linda Baker reported the latest updates. Adaptive shield technology working perfectly, she said. Dr. Lisa Ward's design is absorbing and redirecting all their attacks. Frank nodded. Casualties? None so far. Our shields are holding. Alliance fleet has lost 78 ships and counting. Frank studied the battle map. Despite their losses, the Alliance fleet was still pushing forward, still outnumbering Earth's forces. They were brave. He had to admit that. Sir, Linda said suddenly, Captain Greg Holden's stealth team is in position near the Alliance command ship. Frank smiled slightly. Tell them they have permission to begin the operation. Admiral Zex Terra could not believe what was happening. His mighty armada, the pride of the Alliance, was being torn apart by just 30 ships. How was this possible? Sir, we've lost nearly 80 ships already, reported his tactical officer, voice shaking. Our weapons have no effect on their shields. Zex Terra slammed his fist on his command chair. Keep firing. We still have over 200 ships. They cannot withstand us forever. A junior officer approached nervously. Admiral, some of the Vextal ships are breaking formation. They appear to be retreating. The Vextal were one of the 7 species that made up the Alliance. Known for their 6 eyes and green skin, they were also known for their sense of self-preservation. Cowards, Zex Terra shouted. Order them to maintain position or be fired upon. Suddenly, the lights on the bridge flickered. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings inside our ship, said the security officer. Something is. The officer never finished his sentence. The doors to the bridge slid open, and strange figures rushed in. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their helmets completely hid their faces, and they carried weapons unlike any the Alliance had seen. What is this? Zex Terra demanded, reaching for his own weapon. One of the figures stepped forward. Admiral Zex Terra, I am Captain Greg Holden of Earth's Special Forces. Your ship is now under our control. Zex Terra stared in shock. How did you get aboard? Our shields were at full power. You still don't understand what you're dealing with, Greg said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. Earth has technology far beyond anything the Alliance has imagined. More human soldiers appeared on the bridge, quickly disarming the Alliance officers. Zex Terra looked around at his captured ship in disbelief. Sir, one of Greg's team reported, we have control of all key systems. The ship is ours. Greg nodded. Begin broadcasting to the Alliance fleet. Let them see their admiral has been captured. Throughout the battle, The Alliance ships had been taking heavy losses, but when the image of their captured admiral appeared on their screens, something broke in their will to fight. Some ships continued firing, desperate to break through Earth's defenses. Others began to turn away, looking for escape despite knowing their faster-than-light drives were useless. And some simply stopped fighting altogether, powering down their weapons in surrender. From his command center on Earth, Admiral Harper watched it all unfold. The Vextal ships are surrendering, he noted, and the Krell ships are trying to retreat. Commander Peter Wright nodded. The Alliance is fracturing. They've never faced a defeat like this before. And they never expected humans to be this powerful, Harper added. Send the order to our fleet. Accept all surrenders. We don't need to destroy those who are willing to stop fighting. Peter sent the message. Soon, more and more Alliance ships were powering down their weapons. The mighty armada that had come to crush Earth was falling apart ship by ship. Sir, said a communications officer, Colonel Daniels reports that half the Alliance fleet has either been destroyed or surrendered. The battle is turning decisively in our favor. Harper allowed himself a small smile. Tell him to finish it. It's time to show the galaxy that a new power has emerged. 3 days after the Great Battle, ships from across the galaxy gathered near Earth. But this time, they came in peace. On the largest Earth dreadnought, now named Terra's Hope, representatives from many worlds met in a large meeting room. Admiral Joe Harper stood at the head of a round table. He wore his formal uniform, with shiny medals that showed his years of service. Around the table sat aliens from the Arcturus Confederation, who had been fighting the Alliance for years. There were also representatives from several Alliance species who had surrendered during the battle. And in the corner, under guard, sat Admiral Zexterra. The once proud Alliance leader now looked defeated. His blue skin had lost its shine, and his 6 arms hung limply at his sides. Today marks a new beginning for our galaxy, Harper said to the gathered beings. The old Alliance, built on conquest and fear, is no more. The aliens around the table looked at each other nervously. None had expected humans to be so powerful. None had expected Earth to defeat the entire Alliance armada. We do not seek to replace one empire with another, Harper continued. Earth proposes a new galactic cooperative. Each world will govern itself. Each species will have an equal voice. A tall alien from the Arcturus Confederation stood up. Why should we trust you? Your dreadnoughts could conquer us all if you wanted. Harper nodded. A fair question. And the answer is simple. We could have destroyed every Alliance ship. Instead, we accepted surrenders. We could have bombarded Alliance worlds from orbit. Instead, we are offering peace. He gestured to a screen that showed images of Earth. Humans have fought many wars among ourselves throughout our history. We know the cost of conflict. We prefer cooperation when possible. The representatives talked among themselves. Some seemed doubtful, others hopeful. Finally, the Arcturus representative spoke again. The Confederation agrees to join your cooperative. We have seen enough of war. One by one, other aliens agreed. Even some of the former Alliance members joined, eager to avoid Earth's wrath. Harper turned to Zexterra. Admiral, you will witness the signing of the new treaty. Then you will return to your people and explain that the old ways are over. Zexterra looked up with hatred in his eyes. You think this ends here? There are those who will never accept human rule. Not rule, Harper corrected. Partnership. Those who wish peace will find friends in humans. Those who wish war. He paused, looking at the images of Earth's dreadnoughts on the screen. Well, they have seen what happens then. After the treaty was signed, the representatives left to spread the news across the galaxy. The old alliance was finished. A new era had begun. On the observation deck of Terra's Hope, Commander Peter Wright stood alone, looking out at the stars. Earth ships were helping rebuild Neptune's destroyed stations. Alliance prisoners were being returned to their worlds. The galaxy was changing quickly. He heard footsteps and turned to see Colonel Frank Daniels approach. "Quite a view," Frank said, joining Peter at the window. Peter nodded. I keep thinking about how this all started. The Alliance celebrated their victory over the Confederation. They thought they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. Pride before the fall, Frank said with a small smile. A very human saying that apparently applies to aliens too. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the ships move in space outside. What happens now? Peter asked finally. Frank sighed. The hard part. Peace is always harder than war. We have to build trust, forge alliances, help rebuild what was destroyed. And the Dreadnoughts. Still our best insurance policy, Frank replied. We keep them ready, just in case, but hopefully we won't need them again. A young officer approached them. Sirs, Admiral Harper requests your presence. The first meeting of the Galactic Cooperative Council is about to begin. Peter and Frank nodded and began walking back into the ship. You know, Peter said quietly, a month ago, most of the galaxy didn't even know humans existed. Now we're leading a galactic cooperative. Frank laughed. It's a very human story, isn't it? Underestimated, overlooked, and then suddenly changing everything. As they walked through the massive dreadnought, aliens and humans worked side by side. The ship that had been built for war was now becoming a place of peace. Outside, Earth's other dreadnoughts kept watch, a reminder to the galaxy that humans were now a power to be respected. The Alliance had celebrated victory too soon. They never saw Earth's dreadnoughts coming. The galaxy would not make that mistake again.